This week's podcast is all about time management and energy management. And the reason for that is that when you go from an employed role to a self-employed role as a mortgage broker, or you could be self-employed part of a team and then in an office somewhere, but then you've gone out on your own and you're now a sole trader in your own office or in a bedroom at home, it can be quite a lonely place. And I think it's how you structure your day, how you manage your time, how you manage your energy is key to being a successful mortgage broker. And I understand that a lot of people do struggle with that because they've got nothing to compare against. They've been told what to do before. It's about those habits. And really what I wanted to do is talk a lot more about that and look at breaking those habits to get forming the right habits that work for you and around your values. So got a lady onto the podcast, a lady called Alice Dartnell, who is a time management and energy management coach. She's clearly very qualified when you look at her history. She runs her own business, she runs workshops, she's got a book out. There's a lot of things that I wanted to talk to Alice about, which are all around sort of time management, energy management, and structure, routines, habits, mindsets, and all those sorts of things. So yeah, let's just get Alice onto the podcast. You're listening to the Mortgage Broker Broadcast with me, Craig Skelton, the podcast which helps mortgage brokers at all stages of their mortgage broking career. Alice, welcome onto the podcast. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really, really good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. So yeah.
No, thank you for agreeing to come onto the podcast. I think I am so excited about sort of getting to know you a bit more, understanding more about what you do. I know we had a bit of a chat before we hit record to look at the relevance with regards to, because obviously it's a mortgage broker podcast. It is mortgage brokers that do listen to this podcast generally. And I think the thing what I wanted to do is, and what we talked about was a lot of the people that listen to the podcast, the brokers, are self-employed, working from home or working as sole traders on their own, don't really struggle with structure, struggle with mindset, struggle with time management, energy, and all those things. So when we sort of started communicating on LinkedIn or whatever platform it was, and I saw what you did, I thought, wow, like Alice is like a perfect person to go on the podcast, because it's quite funny that the most listened to podcasts are people not within the industry. So I've had a couple of people on talking about mindset and things like that, and that was the most listened to podcast, and that was done about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, kind of thing. So I think people are genuinely interested in looking at somebody outside the boring financial services world and just getting sort of your take on. Yeah, so I'm just waffling now because I'm excited about sort of just getting to talk a little bit more. I didn't pronounce your surnames. I didn't give you surnames, so I'm going to give you a surname just because I'm going to pronounce it correctly, I think, and that's the sort of thing. So I'll have so Alice Dartnell.
Yeah, that would do.
Fine. That will do. How would you pronounce it then, Alice? Because you're going to sort of...
well, yeah, this is a long-standing joke that I have with me and my friends, that I don't pronounce my own name correctly. So I would pronounce it in my southern accent, probably a bit too common southern accent, Alice Dartnell. But when I do like guest speaking and people introduce me, they often say Alice Dartnell and make it sound a lot nicer, and that's probably the right way to pronounce it. But yeah. And also, ironically, my middle name is Japanese because I'm half Japanese. So my middle name in English is spelt Sakura, which means cherry blossom. But Japanese pronounce their R's as L's. So actually, the real pronunciation is Sakura. So I guess my real name is Alice Sakura Dartnell, but I say Alice Sakura Dartnell.
Whatever works for you. And thanks for that explanation, because that's pretty cool. That is a pretty cool middle name, I think. It's quite unique, I'm guessing, as it is very unique. So excellent.
Yeah,
so
I can't imagine there's many other Alice Sakura Dartnells out there.
No, I think if you got your full name on all your platforms and your social media and things like that we're going to talk about, I think people wouldn't struggle to find you. People wouldn't. I don't think we'll struggle to find you anyway with Alice Dartnell, because I don't think there's many of those out there. But I think with your middle name as well, which I'm not even going to try and pronounce, because we had a bit of a conversation before, because hopefully still got my people know that I'm from Sheffield and Sheffield born and bred, and sometimes the accent comes out, sometimes it doesn't. People sort of try and but hopefully there's things that I say that, given your background, because you spent quite a lot of time in Sheffield at Sheffield Uni, so hopefully the accent won't be too difficult for you to sort of pick up in terms of the certain things, because that's what happens when because the podcast is so relaxed, informal, and I sort of then you just slip into sort of I ain't got a posh accent anyway, so that I don't lose the posh accent. I don't slip out of it. It's not something that I just then slip out of, but it's just then you tend to relax, and then obviously more of your normal dialect comes in, the more relaxed and informal you get. So yeah, hopefully we can understand, and hopefully you understand. So excellent. So we've done enough of waffling. Let's just thank you so much, like I said, for agreeing to come on the podcast. Do you want to just introduce yourself and just explain title, what you do? Just give us a sort of a little bit of an overview and how you got to where you are now, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks again so much for having me. I'm really, really passionate about what I do. So I always love coming onto podcasts and things like that and talking about it. So my technical title, I suppose, is time management and energy management coach. So as a life coach, I specialise predominantly in time management and what I also call energy management. So I generally work with busy business owners who probably don't have enough time in the day, wish there was more hours, or they wish they had a bit more energy as well to kind of achieve what it is that they want to achieve. And the reason why I got into what I do is because I have always been obsessed with time management. Now, I know that sounds really geeky, but when I was younger, probably in my mid-20s, I kind of went on this self-development journey, and unfortunately it was on the back of a decade of a real struggle with my mental health, depression. I had a really bad eating disorder, so this was a decade from teens to mid-20s that I really, really struggled in life. So when I started my recovery journey, I was so, oh my God, I am never wasting another minute of the day. I just felt like I'd wasted this decade. So I was determined to maximize every minute. That was my sole goal, my mission in life. And so I became geekily passionate about time management. So I was always looking for those productivity hacks. How can I multitask? How can I do more? And I think probably on the surface, I looked like I was the queen of time management. My productivity, what I could achieve. I was that person that was at work managing multiple workloads, multiple teams, never late. In fact, probably early because I've got a bit of a military training background as well. So they always if you're on time, you're 5 minutes late. So I got that drilled into me. So on the surface, I was just nailing the time management, and then suddenly in 2019, boom, I burnt out. I couldn't work out why, and I was burnout happens to people that are disorganized and haven't got their selves together, whereas for me, I'm I'm doing everything by the book, but what I wasn't doing was looking after my energy. So I was running around from meeting to meeting, from appointment to appointment with no downtime. I struggled actually to relax, switch off. Productivity for me was all about do output. And I felt guilty if I wanted to watch telly. And I was no, I have to be doing something whilst watching telly. Oh, let's get the ironing out and do some exercise at the same time. And it was just very constant, manic. In that, that fight or flight, I was always in that sympathetic nervous system, adrenaline, cortisol. And then there's only so much you can do. And also combine that with the classic, I'll just get up a little bit earlier so I can squeeze a bit more in. Oh, I'll just finish a little bit later. And then before I knew it, I was probably only surviving on 5 hours of sleep. Combine that with hectic social life and, all that kind of thing. And then just there's only so much you can take before you bankrupt yourself. So when that happened to me, I started the business so this was 2019. And then when I started the business in January 2020, just before COVID and lockdown happened in the UK, I knew that time management was my passion. I wanted to help people maximize their time. However, I wanted them to do it in a way that was consistent, that looked at the energy and that they could build without burnout. Whatever your goal is, that's up to you, but let me help you do that without burnout. And that's for me why becoming a coach, it was right, time management, however, with the energy management bit, because it's just not sustainable otherwise. And I'm testament to that because I burnt out in my early 30s.
I think the thing is, and clearly you're very passionate about what you do. That is literally from the first few minutes into this podcast is like, boom, there you go. Like you clearly, but I think because of what you've been through yourself and you're really
Yeah.
talking about true life experiences and what's gone, what you've had to deal with in your own life, in your own mind. And is that why you're sort of so passionate about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I definitely, obviously, I wouldn't want anyone to go through what I went through with the depression and the eating disorder and the low self-worth and the low confidence and stuff. That was a really dark part of my life. But I also know that that is what drives my passion today, because I've now come out the other side and I've seen how amazing life can be. And I'm not saying my life is perfect. If anyone follows me on Instagram, they will know that I've recently gone through a divorce and there's been a lot of personal dramas in my life. And so I'm not claiming life is perfect, but I'm claiming that actually you can make it how you want it. I call it a life by design, not by default. And that passion for that comes from that recovery journey and then realizing that actually, there's so much stuff that I can do, and combining that with the time management and the energy management. Yeah, absolutely. Everything that I've gone through over the last 20 years, it probably has created that passion of like wanting to help others. Please don't make the same mistakes that I did. What can you learn from what I've gone through, and trying to turn that pain that I went through into something good. Because if I can take that pain into positivity to help someone else, then kind of makes it worth it.
No, definitely. I totally agree. I think when you agreed to be on the podcast and I sort of start to look at a little bit more detail in terms of the research of you and what you've done, and so you are clearly, what I love about it is which it is heart on sleeve. You give that total honesty, total transparency, and it just that helps sort of build trust with people who are looking at your social media, that everything's sort of like not that perfect on there kind of thing. It is very much like you are very open and honest about it. And I think a lot of the brokers, especially mortgage brokers, can, especially at the minute with mortgage broking, it is one of the things that you sort of was clearly where you was it was in a meeting and his appointment. You were eating as quick as you could to just get some food down, to then move on to the next thing, to move on to the next, to move on to the next. And then it's sort of, that's going to hit you at some stage with, you just can't sustain that for a period of time. You might, I think the question is, do you feel better about yourself by being like that, in terms of, oh, I'm busy, look at like how important I am. I'm busy, I've got moving from one to the next and not getting time to eat. I'm starting early, I'm finishing late, things like that. Like, does that give you self-importance, or does that actually, because it's not sustainable, is it? Like, it's more about like sustaining what you want to achieve, that and the lifestyle that you want to have. And like you say, and we're going to talk about time management, because obviously that's a big thing for you, but it's just not sustainable. And I think that's, I went self-employed for sort of 4.5 years ago, come to 5.5 years ago. Like, can't remember now how long I've been self-employed, but that was the thing for me, was that you was micromanaged, told what to do, where to go, when to do it. You would literally just being busy, constantly moving to one to the next. And it wasn't until you take a step back, self-employment for me was a realization, actually, that I could be effective with my time, far better time management, which will come out but in terms of, I could work around my routine and my structure that then worked for me. And my head was then in such a better place being self-employed. Don't get me wrong, self-employed, you still got to think, how I'm going to pay the bills, how I'm going to pay a mortgage, how I'm going to in fact, the financial side of things. But it certainly gives you the freedom to think for yourself and create your own habits and create the right habits that work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I made that mistake, pre-burnout, that I was always 100 miles an hour. And the 100 miles an hour life is not, as you say, it's not sustainable. And there are times where you need to gun for it. You might have a deadline, a big project. I'm sure in the financial world, there's big, deadlines on tax and financial years and stuff like that. And same with my business. August and December, quite quiet, people are offline, not so much on social media. It's, typically a holiday season. So they're quieter times for me. and then I'll maybe have to gun it a little bit more, September, October or something. So it isn't about every day being the same. But the problem with the 100 miles an hour life is that you are doing so much damage to not just your time, but your mindset and your health. And because you're always in what is called the sympathetic nervous system state, that you have a rest and digest, or that fight and flight. If you're constantly in fight or flight, you're constantly producing that adrenaline, that cortisol, and that's fine for little short bursts. But if you're in that state constantly, then it starts impacting things like your weight. It's not great for your hormone balance, your sleep, all these things that will impact. So it's not good for you physically, but also it's not good for you mentally, because it often gets combined with perfectionism, and it often gets combined with an all nothing mindset. And that was me. So I couldn't switch off, because it was like I had to be going boom, boom, boom all the time. So it's like, okay, well, what can I cram into my 24 hours? Okay, right. So I'm going to work my 9 to 5, but at my lunch break, I'm going to do my Japanese homework. And then it's like, right, after work, finish at 5, boom, run straight across London, which is a nightmare anyway, go across London, make sure I'm at my board meeting for 6 o'clock, so I'm doing charity work. And it was just very tick boxy. And actually, when I question it now, was I actually producing good outputs, or was I just focused solely on the boom, 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 the input, the kind of the hours in? And actually, time management for me isn't about the hours in, it's about the quality out, because you could spend 8 hours at work and, you're not really producing anything productive. And actually, 8 hours of work is not 8 hours of quality output results working towards your goal. And I'm sure you'll find, people being self-employed, I don't necessarily work on 9 to 5 anymore, but I am so much more productive now than I have ever been, because I am not 100 miles an hour all the time. So my health is better mentally and physically, my mindset's better. And also I'm focusing on doing the right things, not just a tick list of stuff I've got to do. It's like I'm actually doing the things that are going to take my business forward, and the needle movers, or the things that I enjoy doing. And I think that's, you were saying about, does that make people feel good about themselves? People that are constantly on the go all the time, you're going 100 miles an hour, you're busy. Yeah, I think it does. I think society's given busy a badge of honor. And the problem with that is busy does not mean you're actually doing anything worthwhile. It just means you're busy and running yourself into burnout. So for me, I'm very much focused and help my clients. Well, we've all got 24 hours a day. Unfortunately, I can't give you more, but it's about aligning what you're doing to your values. And actually, I was probably doing a lot of stuff that was just people pleasing and not really aligned to my values or what I wanted to do.
Right.
And so it's a double-edged sword, because busy gives you that sense of, oh, I'm so busy, look at me. Gives you that self-worth, that self-importance. But actually, on the flip side, most of it's probably not aligned to your goals. So it's probably damaging your mindset. And then flopping into bed at night when you're absolutely exhausted, that's not going to fill you up with happiness and joy anyway. So that's probably no good anyway. So I think we think being busy gives us a sense of self-worth and purpose, but in reality, I don't think it does.
No, definitely not. And was there sort of like a one clear defining moment for you that was that sort of, people like sort of say about the light bulb moment, was there something when you thought, actually something has to change? Was there that one, wow, like something has to be done here about this?
I don't think for me there was one light bulb moment. I think looking back, hindsight's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Like looking back, I'm like, there were so many warning signs. I just didn't know them, or I just didn't see them, or I just didn't act on them. But looking back, there were so many signs that I was heading for burnout. And I remember just one day waking up. It was about, I think it was June-ish, 2019. And it was 6 a.m. I came downstairs and I said to my now ex-husband, but my husband at the time, I came downstairs and I just had this overwhelming feeling that I just said to him, I was like, something bad is going to happen. And he was like, what? And I was like, I just got this overwhelming feeling that something bad is going to happen. And I don't know why. I was like, something bad is going to happen. Like I'm going to be in a car crash, because I kept falling asleep at the wheel. That's how bad it was. I was like, I feel like something bad's going to happen. Like I'm going to have that car crash. Or because my temperament and my emotions were so just hot and cold because I just obviously was burning myself out. I couldn't regulate my emotions and my mindset. So I was quite fiery. 1 minute I'd be okay, the next minute the smallest thing would make me go. And I just said to my husband at the time, I was like, something bad's going to happen. And why am I going to crash the car, or I'm going to end up stabbing you? And he was like, okay, right, something's not right here. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I just felt like somebody had body snatched me. I felt like somebody had taken Alice away. And I was like, what is going on? And then I just suddenly had this realization that I'm not me. I think I'm burnt out. And then I Googled, which I know you shouldn't do, but I didn't know about burnout because burnout doesn't happen to organized people. And then I looked and was like, oh, shit, this is burnout. This is serious. And so I don't think it was one thing that made me realize it. I just think I was stupid and ignored all the signs.
I think, like you say, hindsight is a beautiful thing. It very much so. And I think there's a few things you've said in there about things that you were doing that weren't aligned with your values. And I think when things aren't aligned with your values and who you truly are, it's easy enough to say when you are doing something that is aligned with your values. Absolutely. Then people will be listening think, well, like, I'm micromanaged, I'm told what to do, when to do it, and things like that, and maybe not aligned with that. But that for me was, again, I actually the question, because I'm interested to get people's viewing, because there wasn't that light bulb moment for me kind of thing with regards to going from employed to self-employed, running my own firm, to then not so much burnout in terms of how he described, but I just knew that my life had to change and this was like a few years into being self-employed, because it's sort of, I'm starting a firm up. I've got these like 3 of us in this firm, and then you take on that responsibility, thinking, well, I've got to make this work because there's other people in here that, and like you build that the shoulders get wider with the responsibility. So then it's like you're taking on everybody else's without them knowing it, and without they're not doing anything. It's just you take that physical responsibility on board, and then it got to a point thinking like something it was the things you talk about, like in terms of, I wasn't sleeping right. I was laid awake at night, I think, worrying about the firm. And everybody who's got their own firm, and a lot of people will talk about the same thing of they will go through that times where they're laid awake at night. They never stop thinking about the firm. They never stop thinking about what they're doing. They never sort of switch off. And it was a gradual realization for me that actually something had to change. And I think, and why there's a lot of things that sort of you talk about, and I want to even talk about more about, is like morning routine and structure and habits and things like that then help to do that. But there wasn't, for me either, there wasn't that one. I just knew something needed to change. So I was working on my business and developing that and growing that. But then I was also working on myself and developing me in terms of who I was and how I worked. And I think like now, when I look back at the person that I was 5 years ago when I set the firm up, it's just totally different in terms of stress levels and organization and pleasing. Don't get me wrong, I'm always pleased. That's just who I am. I do enjoy pleasing people from that point of view. That's just my makeup and one of like my core things. But it wasn't that was at the detriment for me. And whereas now it's like, because he's getting that structure right and getting the routine right, I've got time to still do the things I do with the business, but then still time for myself because I'm not shuffling papers. I'm not responding to the 3,000 emails every second, every day, checking it, looking at my social media profiles. I'm comfortable. And like my point with it is that I feel comfortable in terms of what I'm doing now, because I'm still servicing the business and growing the business, but then I'm growing myself as well. And I just feel so much better about who I am now than what I did 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, kind of thing. So it was quite interesting. There was a reason why I asked that question about the light bulb moment, because some people talk about having that moment, but then I never did. And it's just interesting your take on it, that yours was the same, really.
Yeah. And that's why, going back to like the passion thing and using my past pain for positive, sharing, is I did not see the signs because I just didn't. Whether I saw them and ignored them, I don't know. But now I've gone through that experience. That's why I'm so passionate about sharing it. And, at the moment I'm running a course on energy management. So I'm taking my time management and drilling down really into that one specific thing. And the ladies on the program are all kind of like, oh, I'm worried about burnout. And so I'm so pleased that they have joined this program so that they can build and create the life they want without the burnout, because now I can teach them, this is what I went through, this is how I've managed it, this is how I recovered, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh God, that for me is, I'm using that pain that I went through for something good, because I did not know the signs. And I'm just so proud and pleased that the ladies in the program are like recognizing, I need some help before it's too late, and prevention is better than cure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about using that learning, because I don't know if there is a one light bulb moment necessarily, because there certainly wasn't for me.
No, the thing is, like you say, it's because you're in it, because you are so involved with what you're doing. It's not easy to just take a step back and go, let's just have a look at this for a moment. What is the chaos and disorder that's going on here? And is this something that I really want to do? And is this something I want to live my life, kind of thing? And that's sort of, and again, it's like people think I've got mortgages, I've got to do this, got to do that. But actually, you said something that I totally get, is that I used to talk about people being busy, just shuffling paper. I still talk about that now. So just scrolling through their emails or doing things like that. Oh, I've been busy at work. Actually, have you really just focused on something for, just give it half an hour, just literally switch everything else off. Don't check your email. Just focus on the task for half an hour, get it done. And then you can have your reward after at half an hour. You can go and make yourself a cup of tea. You can go and do that. You can go and do that, but just give yourself, and that's just my viewpoint, like, because then you just tend to, it's more about action than just thinking, oh, I've been shuffling paper all day. For the last 8 hours, I've just shuffled a bit of paper and I've been busy. But actually, no, have you had some impact on you and your business, kind of thing?
Yeah. I think one of the really important things that you just mentioned was personal growth and development. And I think healthy time management actually needs a good dose of personal development and personal growth, because time management isn't just about planning and Gantt charts and managing multiple workloads and prioritization. Actually, it requires you to do things like set boundaries, know your worth, especially in business, have confidence, stop people pleasing, perfectionism, all these things actually influence your time management and how you use your time, or don't use it well. And actually, you need the personal development to back up your time management, if that makes sense. So it's no surprise that you feel less stressed, more comfortable. So your time management has got better, and your productivity and your output and your business has grown. And that has come in alignment with actually the personal growth and personal development. Yeah, I think the two go hand in hand.
Yeah, they do. You've got to. They certainly do it. I think when you look at time management, and I think there's a bit of, is time. I'm going to sort of throw this in there in terms of, is time management, is that real? Is it like, because you can't manage time. You cannot manage time. We will talk on this podcast. We started talking at a certain time. The podcast goes on for half an hour. It's the end time. You cannot manage the time. Yeah. So what does actually time management mean? What does that mean from your point of view?
Oh my God, I love this question, because I am a bit controversial in this, because I think if you Google time management or look up like the classic time management gurus, they talk about like managing your tasks and being organized and using your time in the most efficient and effective way. Now, for me, that only takes it so far, because I could be really efficient today, but if I'm not being efficient at the right things, was there any point? Like, one of my sayings is, you could climb the ladder and then realize it's propped up against the wrong wall. So you could climb that ladder efficiently, get to the top of the wall, go, that's the wrong bloody wall. So what was the point? So for me, time management actually is about it's not, well, you can't manage time. It ticks by regardless. You can't like reprimand it or put it on the naughty step when it's not behaved. Like, you cannot manage time. It's about managing like your lifestyles, your goals, other people, tasks. That's really what it's about. But also it's about your I think it's about managing your energy as well, because so many times people will say, oh, I don't have time for this. Well, that's not really true. It's probably that you didn't have energy. People don't procrastinate because they've got too much time on their hands. People procrastinate because they haven't got the energy for something, because it doesn't light them up, or because they're tired, or they just can't be asked, or whatever. So actually, a lot of our time management issues have nothing to do with the clock ticking by. It's about our energy. So for me, time management is not about time. For me, time management is about you and your energy, and kind of using that in a way that serves you, not just being efficient.
No. And do you sort of look at, and I love that the answer to that question, and that's why I asked it, because do you find that when you talk to people, and the people that you coach, the people that you work with, and the people that you listen to, is it about working the right time for them in terms of when they perform best? Is that sort of something that you work into that, in terms of, I know that I'm this kind of person, so that I work well with this, or I go through this? And is that something that's sort of built into that, or something that you work on, Alice?
Oh, but absolutely. Like, this is one of the difficulties around time management and energy management. Like, I would love to sit here and give people 10 top tips that's going to work for everyone. And it's not. You've got to make it adaptable and personalized to you, because there are so many factors at play, and time management misses that. Time management is about diarising, planning, time blocking, Pomodoro, but it also advocates things like you've got to do the most important thing first in the diary. So you pick things like David Allen, getting things done. I think it's Brian Tracy, Eat That Frog. He talks about doing the worst frog in the morning, because that's when you're going to have your most motivation. If you're a morning person, yes. But if you're a night owl, then maybe not. Maybe use your mornings for a slower start. Maybe that's when you do the washing up and the admin, because your brain hasn't kicked into the gear yet. And at 2:00 when you come awake, maybe that's the time to work on that big project. So for me, I have to work with my clients, because they've got so conditioned, like we all have, into 9 to 5, got so conditioned into must do emails first thing, and then we have to do this, and then I've got to be constantly replying to people instantly. Otherwise, I have to say, oh, sorry for the slow response, and it's been like 2 hours. We get so conditioned into that. Actually, I have to break it back down to them and go, well, what works for you? And they don't know, because they've never thought about it. And this is so many factors. It could be things like personal preference. So things like, chatting to you today, this has got me buzzing. Like, I absolutely love stuff like this. So sitting, chatting here with an hour with you, that will light me up. That's what I call an energy filler. If you sat me down for an hour, which is the same amount of time, and said, Alice, I want you to do your admin and accounts, finance is not the thing. So I'd be like, oh my God, what a drain. So that hour is not the same. It's an hour, 60 minutes, but energetically, it's not the same for me. And sometimes we work so much the clock, we're not actually thinking about, is it a filler or a drainer? And then we put too many drainers in the day, and then no wonder we get into the end of the day feeling shattered, or on a Friday or whatever. So it's about making it work for you. And also things like chronotypes. We all probably have heard that we've got a biological clock. Well, we all have a different chronotype as well. And that's kind of like your own biological clock. So my chronotype might be slightly different to yours, for example. And if anyone's interested in this, I'd definitely recommend The Power of When, which is a fantastic book that kind of introduces you to different chronotypes, and there's 4. And it's about then working out what's best for you. Some people like a morning workout to energize them, but actually for other people, a mid-afternoon workout might be better, because they're going to get an afternoon slump and the exercise can put them up. So it's about knowing your own personal energy rhythms. It's about knowing what your energy drainers and fillers are, making it work for you, and not just kind of taking a one-size-fits-no-one approach. Like we kind of classically trying to shoehorn ourselves into 9 to 5. That might not work for us. So yeah, absolutely. When I work with my clients, I have to make sure that it works for them.
I love that. I think that's one of the realizations, like I said, because we've had the habit of 9 to 5, the routine that we've had. And then it's okay. Like you either, when you go self-employed or you've not been told what to do, when to do it, you either continue with that routine or actually you break that routine. And the quicker you realize that there is a time that works for you, and there's certain things. It's like for me, I could never, like, I am a morning person. So 5 a.m. in the morning, I'm out, I'm like sat in my office from 6 o'clock every single day. Like even in the winter, like it's dark, but I'm that's just my routine of how I am.
Yeah.
But then get to sort of like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I could never record. People book on the podcast and then they get the podcast recorded at 4 o'clock thinking, Craig, why did you let them do it? Because my mind is by that time at 4 o'clock. It's sort of, it's sort of like, oh, right, like admin time for that. That's thinking, right, just you needed to do this, I needed to do that. And they just get put to that. Or like you said, I realize that the energy boost, so I will go for a run or do something like things like that to then think. So I do that, and we'll come on to structure because I'm a very routine person. Certain things that happen every single day, and it's just, and so at certain times of day, but that works for me. It's only because I've been able to adapt and learn from that and learn what works for me in terms of times and stuff like that. So I will go now. The old person would the old me would say, you can't go for a run at 4 o'clock in the afternoon because that's still technically 9 till 5. So you should be sat in front of your machine, being a slave to your PC or your laptop or whatever, your phone. You can't do that. But actually, the realization is like, well, I know that I come back from going to the gym or doing that some form of exercise 4 till 5, and then I might then either choose to do something energetic, like something that will build me something that I want to do. So it might be learning, might be like doing something else that I want to do, or it might be thinking, well, I can go back to my front of the machine again and go back to my laptop and go through do whatever I need to between 6 and 7 or 5. So it's just creating that sort of structure that works for you. And actually, once you get to realize that, you feel better about, just lose those. I don't know. I've never heard of saying it, but do you know, like, sort of lose
as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it, Alison. I've talked to be fair, I've done a solo podcast a while ago, which was about the guilt. And because you just lose the guilt. It's okay to do what you want to do when you want to, because if that works for you, that works for you. Because it's not a one shoe fits all. It's not a case of this is how you have to be kind of thing. So I know these advisors that I work with and brokers that I work with that, for me, like they'll ring me at 7 o'clock at night. It's like, that's an early in the relationship. Because like, why is it like 7 o'clock at night? There's like no chance I don't want to my brain needs this time to recharge and get prepared for tomorrow. So like generally like 6 till 7 for me is preparing for tomorrow. Do I know literally, am I organized? I've reviewed today and am I structured for tomorrow, knowing exactly what I need to? Because I want to walk in the office at 6 o'clock and want to be straight on it. I know what I'm doing, not getting there in the 6 o'clock. I'll check my emails now and I'll have a coffee and I'll just have a bit of a dwindle and then so start scrolling through social media. Then all of a sudden it's 7 o'clock, and then you start to feel guilty because thinking, why did I get in early? Because I've just wasted that 60 minutes kind of thing. So I make sure that I review the day before and know what I'm doing as soon as I walk in, because then it literally is that there's your task, and it's sort of things you've got to do and things that I want. You're right. It's about the swallowing the frog. It's a case of like that I work best for me in the morning, so the tasks get done, but and the ones I know that I need energy to do.
Yeah, and I think it's about also recognizing that, number one, as a business owner or self-employed, that you do have that flexibility outside of 9 to 5, and also knowing what is going to work for you in general on a day-to-day basis, like you're a morning person, but also what's going to work for you depending on the circumstance. So, for example, I got back from Seville quite late last night. So I live in Valencia. I went on a little 5-day trip to Seville. I got back quite late last night. So by the time I got back from the airport, etc., so I got to bed probably about 1 a.m. So I knew, because obviously I booked my flights, I knew that I was not going to get up at 7 a.m. today. I could have forced myself up, But I also know that would that produce the best Alice for today? And it was like, no. And I also know that if I can see the dirty washing pile sticking its ugly head at me whilst I'm trying to like record podcasts, and I've got clinic calls today, client calls, and my book club, and all this stuff where I have to like be focused. So it's like, no, actually, so the morning I'm going to make that time for me. I did a bit of exercise, I stocked up the fridge, did some washing, did some unpacking, and I haven't actually started my work day till 12 p.m. Now, like you said, old Alice would have been like, the guilt, it's 12 p.m. You're so lazy and all this kind of thing. And I'm like, well, actually, I'm working till 9 tonight because of the time differences with my book club. So I actually am. I've got a really busy day from 12 to 9. So I need that time in the morning to get my house clean, to get myself sorted and ready, get my energy up with a workout, all those kind of things. So we have to be really conscious, I think, of that as business owners. Do not necessarily try to shoehorn your life into a 9 to 5 if it doesn't work for you.
And is that, are you, in terms of you and your organization, and how organized you are and things like that, do you work on habits with your clients? Or we haven't even talked about your workshops, your book, or anything. We've not even gone on that. I knew for a fact, and it always happens, is that this is why we never have an agenda for the podcast, because it just tends to, we'll start talking about something and they just sort of goes in a different, like a totally different direction, thinking we've not even talked about like the firm, the workshops, books, like we've not even got into that yet. But it's sort of, so yeah, sorry, and again, I would like go off on a tangent. So habit forming, is that something that sort of like you, again, from your own point of view and from your client point of view?
Yes, absolutely. Everything we do is habit. Like everything we do is habitual. We like to think we are in control of our thoughts, feelings, and actions, but let's be honest, the majority of what we do is habitual. Even things like how you sit, how you pour your tea, stuff like that. And the big kind of aha moment for me with habits, and also identity as well. So you've got to combine your habits. Bit of a disclaimer: you've got to combine your habits with a new identity, because you can't change your habits if you don't believe in them, and you only will believe in them if you've got the identity of it. So the big aha moment for me was I had an eating disorder for 10 years. Now, I am not a stupid girl. I know that was not good for my body. So I had every bit of logic, every bit of common sense in me being like, you've got to stop doing this to yourself. But I couldn't, because it was habit. And the problem with habit is the majority of what we do is habitual. And 95% of the thoughts that we think today are the same as yesterday. So our thinking patterns are habitual as well. And the problem with that is then we're creating these neural pathways in our brain because we're thinking the same shit every day. And we can change it. And we know from neuroscience and neuroplasticity that we can, but obviously it doesn't happen overnight. So people always ask me, how did I recover? How did I get out of my depression, out of my eating disorder? It wasn't common sense. I didn't suddenly wake up one day and go, do you know what? I'm really damaging my body. I need to stop. What it was me changing my identity and changing my habits. I mean, and we all have, there's a habit loop, a cue, a routine, and a reward. That's it. That's all that makes up a habit. And the problem is when we're trying to do something new or break an old habit, we're trying to drastically do something, but actually we haven't figured out what the cue, routine, reward is. And this is why people struggle with creating habits. But habits are absolutely a foundation to creating the life you want, the lifestyle you want, using time in the way that you want, because the majority of what we do is habitual. So you've definitely got to get your habits in check. And yeah, for me, habits and time management, energy management, one big happy family.
I love that sort of thought of the saying of the creating a new identity. I think that is, because that's key to, isn't it? You could, like, say, you're going to wake up today and go, yeah, I'm going to create this new habit, I'm going to do that. But unless you realize that your identity needs to change and who you are needs to change for that, does that come first? Is that the acceptance of changing the identity before the habits, or is it that the habits that create the new identity?
I think they do go hand in hand, but I do strongly believe that everything starts with mindset. And if you don't see yourself as something, it's going to be hard to create the habit. So when I started seeing myself as someone who was healthy and respected their body and looked after their well-being, then then the habits could follow. But it was really hard to implement the habits if I truly didn't believe that in the first place. And the same will be about your time management as well. If you don't believe you're an organized person, you don't believe you're productive, you don't believe that you can create the results that you want in your business, and you've got the belief that, well, as a business owner, I have to work 70-hour weeks, because that's what everyone says. You've got to get up at 5 and hustle and grind and work 12-hour days. If you believe that, then your habits are going to support that.
It's so true. And I think that is a real, it's when you start to look at that and strip away the layers that you have yourself and delve more into who you are and the habits that you've got, and be like I say, the way you make tea, the way you do this, the way you do that is always all habits that are formed. But it is acknowledging. I think you have to acknowledge that first of all, don't you? You have to that realization. Like for you, it's like for me thinking, well, I know what the thing for me was, I know how I felt when I didn't do the things that I wanted to do. So that was the spark for me, like the realization for me, thinking, I got to the end of the day, reflecting on the day that I'd had and thinking, I'd not done what I need, like something has to change. I have to form a new habit to change the way to see the results I want to. But that for me was just it was me. It was like, it was looking back at me going, well, you can't blame anybody for this and not happening. You can sort of blame anybody else or blame something like that. It's actually that's not happened because you've chosen to that not happen. So whether that's running or doing something or a task or something that is, you've made that choice of either to do it or not. But I think, like you say, habits are, people don't realize how fundamental habits are. And I think there's just so much, we could do a whole array of podcasts on habits and things like that. I think it's just such a deep thing to get into. But I think, like you said, it's understanding that first of all, and then working hand in hand with, like I say, creating that identity. Yeah. So mindset is a massive, huge subject that obviously you talk about, you work with, and like you look at that. Is it a case of, like, I've read books, I've talked to people, it's like fixed mindset? Is it like what, like when you're sort of like sat down with your clients and looking at the workshops you're doing, things like that, how, like, are you sort of working with people that have got different mindsets, working with them in terms of how to get the most out of where they're at and get the most out of their mindset, if that is their mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we all carry our baggage around, we all carry our past experiences around that shape how we think and feel, and our belief systems and stuff like that. And often when we go from corporate into business as well, then that's a big jump. Like for me, people will say, what was the hardest thing about setting up your business? And I'm like, the mindset shift. The mindset shift from employee to entrepreneur was really like a struggle for me. And it's getting rid of those limiting beliefs and changing your mindset, and that is the foundation to everything, because your mindset will shape your thoughts, and your thoughts are going to shape your actions, and your actions, that will influence your time management, how you use your energy. How do you feel guilty for taking Monday off, stuff like that. So yeah, I have to really work with my clients to work out what mindset it is they have, and what needs tweaking and changing. And then obviously going back to like habits, okay, well, we need to create some new habits, new ways of thinking, create those new neural pathways. It's not, I never pretend it's going to happen overnight, but it is doable. I know for sure it's doable from my own experience and working with my clients. But yeah, it's really important that we get the right mindset.
And I appreciate your honesty with that, because I think there's some of the things that when I looked at what you do and some of the comments and the posts you've done on social media and things like that, and talking about how important sleep is, and not not looking at your phone, how like a morning routine and things like that. It is like breaking it all down and actually thinking about those habits where people have that habit as soon as they wake up in the morning, like literally their eyes aren't even open and they're reaching out for the phone and looking and that's going to bed at night, like people, the last thing they do. And it wasn't until I realized that, and I thought, because I do track I'm quite anal with those sorts of things. I do track my sleep. I've got my Garmin watch that tracks everything in terms of like all the different things that are going on. And that, like, even now, like I take it off of the podcast thinking I've got an orange band on my thing, but I do track it like that because I do. And it wasn't until that, and with the technology now, and this was the thing that I was going to sort of go on to, like working with sort of some of the technology that's available to then track all the things that I know, like my watch told me this morning that you literally didn't get the best night's sleep last night. And I look at the structure before I went to bed, and I know the consequences of what I did have then affected my sleep, which then has affected my day and affect how I felt when I woke up, but not how I felt when I woke up, is how I'm going to feel probably about 2:00 this afternoon when I'm thinking, oh, that's like, you get that, like I said, that will be the coming down kind of time. So yeah, everything that you sort of, when you look at things like that and the habits of sleep patterns and what you do, the routine before you go to bed and the routine you do when you wake up, has massive influence in who you are and how you conduct and the way that your day is going to be structured the following day. And that is not until I've looked into this more, and I'm keen to get your take on that because I've done a lot of reading around that, because I do get that now.
Yeah, for me, having what I call a wind down routine, so that you're bookending your day. So having that wind down routine of how you close your day off. I'm a big believer in preparing for the day and the night before as well. So making sure that I wake up in the morning and know what the day's got in store for me. That's really important, but also my morning ritual as well. So it doesn't have to take long. It could just be 10 minutes, but it's just getting yourself into that headspace, grounding you, setting you up for the day. That for me is absolutely critical. So I call it bookending your day. And a habit, like I really, really encourage people to do that, so that, again, you're maximizing your time, not because you're putting more hours in the day, but you're maximizing your energy, expanding your mindset, your motivation, your focus. This is how you get more out of time. For me, that's so important. If you roll out of bed and into your day, that for me is a big no-no. You need to create the mindset, the motivation, the energy that you want for the next 24 hours ahead.
Alice, I've just literally, we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, and I really could, because I've got a genuine passion about these sort of things. So I'm really, it's been great to talk to you and get your viewpoints on something. I feel as though we've not even scratched the surface to a certain thing with a lot of things. But
it's such a huge topic. Time management, energy management is huge.
Absolutely is. I think, but we've not talked about workshops, we've not talked about books, we've not talked about working with you, we've not even got to the detail about it, which is great. But at the same time, you're sort of thinking, I want to get more involved with that. I'm thinking about so obviously I'll tag in onto the podcast when it goes, like we'll tag in all the social media, your profile, your websites and things like that as well. But if I'm thinking right now, I want to know more about Alice. What sort of things are, like, what are the workshops? Are they online? Because obviously you're in Valencia, so it's not exactly around the corner for people in the UK. So yeah, how does all that work?
So I work predominantly online because my business is international. Obviously, you can tell by my accent I am English, but I live in Spain and I do a heck of a lot of traveling. So everything I do is online, and I also have a really international business as well. So all my clients generally are like America, Middle East, Europe. So if anyone wants to kind of find out a little bit more about what I do, feel free to head over. I'd say come find me on Instagram. That's where I'm mainly hanging out. So it's just my name, Alice_Dartnell or Dartnell, depending on how you want to say it. I am also on LinkedIn as well. I don't think there's too many Alice Dartnells out there. So do come say hi on there as well. But I've got to confess, I'm more of an Instagram girl because I like my visuals and the images. And if anyone wants to contact me about how I can help them, obviously, more than happy to chat. I offer one-to-ones. I also do group coaching, group courses at different points of the year. So at the moment, for example, I'm just starting my energy management program, and I'm going to be launching soon my online time management course. So that's more self-study because, I get it. Time management, you're busy. You've got to make it work for your schedule, not necessarily mine. So I'll be launching that in 2023, which I'm super excited about as well. Or just head over to my website, alicedartnell.com. There's all my information on there. Not gonna lie, it's not the most up-to-date website and stuff, but you will at least find out a little bit more about my services, my book club, and the different programs and packages that I've got on offer at different points of the year, etc. So yeah, come say hi, and if anyone's got any questions as well, I love receiving a little DM where people are asking for a tip because they've heard me on a podcast or something. So yeah, come say hi.
Excellent, and I will get all the links into the podcast, into the social that we do. So, Alice, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your honesty. I've so thoroughly enjoyed the time we've sort of spent, and just getting to know you in terms of a lot more, and your business and where you've been and where you're going. And yeah, thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for having me. I've loved it.
Thank you for listening to the Mortgage Broker Broadcast, the podcast which helps mortgage brokers at all stages of their mortgage broking career. If you have any questions about this podcast or any topics you want us to discuss, or if you're interested in working with me further, then please get in touch.